symbols have always played a vital role in political movements. But in the 1920s and 30s, American communists really took this to the next level through wearable pins, publications, and public demonstrations. At this time, they showcased their admiration for the Soviet Union, a society they believed held the key to a better new future, the future of socialism. Assalamu alaikum, comrades. Today, we're exploring how the visible, wearable symbols of American communists connected them to their cause, to the Soviet Union, and how these symbols and their actions still resonate today. So in the 1930s, as the United States grappled with the Great Depression, many American communists looked across the ocean to the Soviet Union for hope and inspiration. The USSR, fresh off its first 5-year plan, was making strides in industrialization and education. This rapid transformation became a symbol of what a socialist society could achieve, and many believed that the United States, too, could benefit from adopting these principles. Achievements like its industrial growth, especially its success in building infrastructure and collectivizing agriculture, it stood in stark contrast to the American capitalist system that was frankly failing them at this time, and still today. For early American communists, the Soviet experiment offered a vision of hope, especially as the Depression deepened. I've talked about this in past videos, but there was also this massive cultural exchange. There was travel to the Soviet Union. This is a 1930s travel pamphlet. The largest country in the world beckons American travelers abroad. There's a general agreement that it is also the most interesting. The Soviet Union contains within its borders almost every climate, every species of topography, and scenic panorama can be found anywhere. 149 languages and dialects are spoken by 82 ethnic groups. But most interesting of all is the spectacle of over 160 million people building a new social and economic system on a scale and with a speed unprecedented in history. It opens with that. How neat. Thousands of Americans, including intellectuals, laborers, and African Americans seeking refuge from racism, traveled to the USSR. These travelers returned home with stories of Soviet advancements, further fueling communist enthusiasm in the US. This travel gave American communists a first-hand look at a world they believed was possible in their own country. And so back in the United States, American communists didn't just read about Soviet achievements, like in this November 1935 edition of Soviet Russia Today, also advertising Anna Louise Strong's Moscow News newspaper. We love Anna Louise. Anyways, they didn't just read about it, they wore their support on their sleeves, sometimes literally. And so Soviet newspapers, those that even existed in English, were not the only ones available for those American communists. They had their own pro-Soviet press. The Daily Worker was quite popular back then, and many others like it. You didn't even have to buy these Soviet-produced magazines to get pro-Soviet voices. Our labor press was a lot more powerful, let's say, back then. Every region, every city with its local newspaper, sometimes multiple, spreading that inspiring news. And they played a crucial role in spreading those Soviet achievements, especially in contrast with the economic turmoil in the States. Read Communist Press, one of these pins I'm going to show you says. A testament to the many options that used to exist. And frankly, an interesting wearable call to action. Engage with the press that can shape your political consciousness, class consciousness. It's just interesting that we have these wearable calls to action to read, to be involved in the political campaigns that had communist people running, marking your participation or proudly identifying you as a part of the global worker struggle for a classless society. And yet the path for American communists was fraught with danger. While they expressed their admiration for the Soviet Union openly for a want of a communist system, they faced significant suppression. And frankly, we're seeing that again. Oh, there's a lesson to take from all of this, trust me. Government agencies, especially the FBI, kept a close watch on American communists. Leaders that would pop up would be arrested, and communists were labeled as threats to American democracy. The so-called loyalty of American communists would constantly be in question.
New York and Pittsburgh, 17 U.S. communist leaders are arrested. Among them, Israel Amter, a charter member of the American Body. 4 more Red leaders are still being sought. The group is charged with criminal conspiracy to teach and advocate the overthrow of U.S. government. Their indictment follows the recent Supreme Court decision upholding the conviction of the 11 communist leaders, whom the indictment says these Reds replaced as party chiefs.
There was a social stigma for communists that wore pins or openly advocated for socialist or communist ideals or advocating for Soviet policies. It came with personal costs, just like how I'm sure many of you today are afraid of voicing your real political stances, whether that's posting about it online or even bringing it up at work, let alone wearing Lenin on your lapel. In the past, many lost their jobs, were ostracized from their communities, and faced harassment from institutions like the HUAC and local police forces, of course, many of which responsible for destroying labor press. In some instances, repression turned more violent than destroying press.
200 stalwart cops wearing trench helmets stopped 500 communists attempting to march on the Japanese consulate in the Tribune Tower. Every Red that attempted to argue was rushed to the Black Maria or a police car, and the woman agitators as well as men were seized in the big roundup. Some of the known radicals who were anxious to take a swing at the police got it in the neck instead and grew very indignant.
Come on, what are you doing there? Throw that thing up there. Throw that thing up there, mate. Do it.
When the women marchers started to arrive in numbers, Michigan Boulevard looked like a sorority promenade, with guardians of the law escorting the violent ones to the jail by auto. As the communists were rushed into patrol wagons, they had very little time to think it over, although some of them had plenty to say.
Take a slap at me. Go ahead, boys. Take a slap at me. Go ahead. You take it at the gun and get on the
But let's take an even closer look at some of the wearable symbols that American communists used to show their defiance and solidarity. I want to mention that I find these physical wearable items some of the most valuable aspects of truly understanding the past, the people of the past. When there is an object you can hold, interact with, and wear yourself, you can imagine a lot more clearer what it was like being that person choosing to put this on. In the morning, getting ready for work, about to step outside and face the reality of, well, a capitalist society. In spite of everything, or rather, to bravely inspire themselves to get through that day, to have something bigger to hope for, fight for, just as I do today, every day, with these very same items. So for each pin that I'm about to show you and tell you about, imagine what the previous owner might have looked like, what their life was like, what had brought them to that point, what they faced when wearing this pin, and how they didn't let any of the reactions deter them, and how lucky we are to still have these today. They're getting harder to find. And so first is that Vote Communist pin. Again, everything I'm about to show you is from the 1930s. Their origins are harder to track down. It's most likely that the CPUSA at the time made the majority of these, but some of them could have been made by other organizations. Unlike the Soviet Union, they didn't leave extensive maker's marks and records for who designed it. Sometimes we have a mark that says it was made by a certain printing union. Anyways, Vote Communist. And here in the United States, getting closer to the time of year where we are supposed to vote, and I will be wearing this. Not that there's really a viable communist option. Would y'all be angry if I told you I'm probably gonna vote for... Please don't be mad at me, comrades. I feel like no matter what I say, someone's gonna get really mad about that. But yeah, vote communist. So this pin was a reminder that political participation, even against overwhelming odds, about to go against what I just said, huh? Even against overwhelming odds, it was a key part of the communist mission, signaled a belief in that systematic change. Something I believe we're far past. At this point, you gotta get rid of the structure we have and start anew. You can't change things from the inside. I was a legislative assistant in my state's House of Representatives for all of 10 months, and I was disillusioned to get there, and by the time I was there, radicalized even more. You can't change things from the inside, but for the historical value, right? It's more socially acceptable to say vote communist than burn the current system to the ground, like the Bolsheviks. But yeah, at the time, it did signal belief in systematic change through democratic means, even though these communist candidates of the past were often marginalized for their beliefs and stances. But there is something actually like socially acceptable about wearing something like this to at least appear as though you are an American citizen engaged in democracy. Now I have three May Day ones: May Day 1937, May Day 1938, and May Day 1939. Unite labor against reaction, united against war and fascism, and then finally unite against fascist aggression. Interesting how as the years go on, 37, 38, 39, it's more of a stance against fascism, as that is the growing threat in the world at that time. Again, comrades, just like today. Other than the actual dates listed on here, these pins still very much scream relevant in a modern May Day protest. I'm absolutely going to be wearing these. This one is my favorite one, the biggest one, although the oldest. I just personally like this design. But it's cool to have a pin that symbolizes and shows your participation in that annual celebration of worker struggle. By wearing this, those American communists expressed their connection to international efforts to fight for workers' rights and, well, against war and fascism, as we should today. Now this pin against war and fascism, yet again featuring Lenin, 1870 to 1924, his birth and death, joined the Communist Party, it says. I think because Lenin is on this one, it really highlights the Soviet struggle against fascism. They were certainly prevailing at the time and would then go on and beat fascism in Europe. That fight against fascism was something American communists took seriously, especially as the rise became more apparent. Something we should take seriously now. Never allow fascism in your vicinity. We definitely need to act more, when we see that in our cities. And there's nothing wrong wearing things proclaiming your disgust for fascism. I also just really love the design of this one with Lenin. He looks extra handsome. I don't know why they made him extra handsome like that. There's tons of other pins from this time that I would love to collect in the future that are really hard to get a hold of. For years I've been trying to find these, and recently I found 2 lots on eBay, which is how I acquired all these pins. Oh, I have one more to show you, but oh well. As you can see here, there's tons of cool ones with similar messages and highlighting not just Soviet achievements and anniversaries, but also using their faces as, well, caricatures in those messages. Here, they thought Lenin was the perfect figurehead to say this, to say, unite against fascism, join the Communist Party. Who else would you put on it? And then back to Read Communist Press. This one does look quite nice with the predominant white backdrop. Of course, at a time when media was less accessible than today, this pin urged Americans to engage with, well, communist publications. It emphasized the importance of independent journalism in shaping political ideology and the value of spreading radical ideas through written word. Now we have, well, TikTok and YouTube and stuff, but the same idea applies. Communist media, I guess, is the appropriate modern term. Anyways, comrades, in the face of intense scrutiny and repression, those early American communists weren't afraid. They wore their politics proudly through pins, symbols, and even their clothing. These powerful symbols serve as statements of belief, of solidarity, and defiance. Sorry, I recently got this reproduction M36 and the Adrian helmet. Gotta get some use out of it. And so the Red Scare, the second and first, there were multiple. You can argue that we're currently in the third, though those first 2 waves sought to stamp out the influence of communism. The wearable art continues to inspire today. Look at how I decorate my place. Look at how I choose to teach. Look at what I actually wear every day. Some think it's silly, but for me it helps me directly connect to those people of the past and to tell their stories. The power of these symbols, physical symbols after all, never actually fades. Just as art and style have the ability to carry political messages through the generations. Oh, anyways, comrades, have you ever seen any of these badges before? Specifically from the 30s? I'm very interested in having more of them and wearing them more as well. I'm very distracted right now because in the process of showing you all of those, the last one I put on, the Communist Press one, disappeared. Oh my god, I'm a terrible historical preserver. All this stuff, and then I lose things. I don't know what happened. My camera died at my last word talking about that pin, and I absentmindedly took it off and set it somewhere and plugged in my camera, and now it's gone. You know, there's only 750 square feet it could be in, but that 750 square feet is quite cluttered, and it's not in any of the usual places, so yeah, I'm a little frazzled right now. And in the midst of me panicking because I can't find that pin, someone like left me a comment, takfiring me. So, you know, Muslim comrades, make dua for me. I'm being takfired in one of my comment sections, and I've lost something I value very much. Ya Allah, guide me to the communist press pin, inshallah. Anyways, comrades, thanks for listening and being here. I hope this inspires you to find more pins, to be not afraid to wear them, and to feel rather empowered by them, and to know that if you do feel scared to state your beliefs today, when it can be like dangerous and you know, there's repercussions. There were repercussions 100 years ago, 90 years ago, 80 years ago. And those people still wore these badges, still said they were communists, and still fought for the future that they believed in. And while we no longer have the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union, you know, thanks Khrushchev, morphed into something unrecognizable from its beginnings, we still can be inspired by that early time. Recently, I got these two books, Red Feminism, American Communism, and the Making of Women's Liberation, and The Romance of American Communism. I'm waiting on another book I ordered, also on women in the labor movement, and I'm trying to do a lot more research of the stories of these early American communists. I'm specifically interested in the everyday lives of the women involved in these movements, because I'd love to do more, you know, the LARP, the day in the life. What did the average American communist woman do every day? How did she get ready? What did she wear? What did she look like? I'm always interested in that sort of thing. And snippets of everyday life of early American communist women is hard to come by, so I'm hoping there's some interesting information in these books I've found. I'll let you know, of course. Anyways, be inspired by history. Please, if you haven't already, consider supporting me on Patreon. That's mainly the only way that I make money through this. And, you know, like and share and all that stupid stuff that you gotta do for whoever decides how things work this way, I guess. Engagement is good. Don't be afraid to share your beliefs by sharing this video. Oh goodness. I won't ramble on too much because I'm still in a, where is my valuable rare pin from the 1930s? Surely it couldn't have gone far. Thanks, ADHD. I appreciate you guys. I'm sure you all understand. I'm chronically unorganized, but that's okay. I accept that. I'm a passionate person. I'm an obsessive person, hence the collecting. But that also means I have the character trait of misplacing things. Too much going on here, too much going on here. Things disappear, but it will show up. I hope you all have a fantastic day that doesn't involve losing things or being takfired. Goodbye. Okay, update. Yeah. God, I'm so stupid. I'm putting my pins away because these ones are going in the display case. Look, it was stuck behind this one. It's still stuck behind this one. One sec. There we go. Huzzah. To safety.